Welcome back to another Serial Killer Saturday Unsolved series. We venture into this new subcategory in an attempt to explore the theories and possibilities of the unsolved case of the Zodiac Killer. In December of 1968 until October of 1969, 4 men and 3 women between the ages of 16 and 29 were targeted. The killer claimed to have killed 37 victims, but only 5 deaths were ever confirmed. The killer originated the name Zodiac in a series of taunting letters sent to the local Bay Area press. These letters included 4 cryptograms or ciphers. The site ZodiacKiller.com has dedicated themselves to cracking the code of the Zodiac and even has each letter posted and broken down for you to read. I have left a link in the description box if you'd like to check it out for yourself. The first murders widely attributed to the Zodiac Killer were the shootings of high school students Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday on December 20th, 1968. On Lake Herman Road just inside Benicia city limits. The couple were on their first date and planned to attend a Christmas concert at Hogan High School about 3 blocks from Jensen's home. The couple instead visited a friend before stopping at a local restaurant and then driving out on Lake Herman Road. At about 10:15 p.m., Faraday parked his mother's Rambler in a gravel turnout, which was a well-known lover's lane. Shortly after 11 p.m., their bodies were discovered by Stella Borges, who lived nearby. The Solano County Sheriff's Department investigated the crime, but no leads developed. Utilizing available forensic data, Robert Graysmith postulated that another car pulled into the turnout just prior to 11 p.m. and parked beside the couple. The killer apparently exited the second car and walked toward the Rambler, possibly ordering the couple out of the Rambler. Jensen appeared to have exited the car first. Yet when Faraday was halfway out, the killer apparently shot Faraday in the head. Fleeing from the killer, Jensen was gunned down 28 feet from the car with 5 shots through her back. The killer then drove off. Just before midnight on July 4th, 1969, Darlene Farron and Michael McGow drove into the Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, 4 miles from the Lake Herman Road murder site, and parked. While the couple sat in Farron's car, a second car drove into the lot and parked alongside them, but almost immediately drove away. Returning 10 minutes later, this second car parked behind them. The driver of the second car then exited the vehicle, approaching the passenger side door of Farron's car, carrying a flashlight and a 9mm Luger. The killer directed the flashlight into McGow's and Farron's eyes before shooting at them, firing 5 times. Both victims were hit, and several bullets had passed through McGow and into Farron. The killer walked away from the car, but upon hearing McGow's moaning, returned and shot each victim twice more before driving off. On July 5th, 1969 at 12:40 a.m., a man phoned the Vallejo Police Department to report and claim responsibility for the attack. The killer also took credit for the murders of Jensen and Faraday 6.5 months earlier. The police traced the call to a phone booth at a gas station about 3/10 of a mile from Farron's home, and only a few blocks from the Vallejo Police Department. Farron was pronounced dead at the hospital. McGow survived the attack despite being shot in the face, neck, and chest. On August 1st, 1969, 3 letters prepared by the killer were received at the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. The nearly identical letters took credit for the shootings at Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs. Each letter also included 1/3 of a 408 symbol cryptogram, which the killer claimed contained his identity. The killer demanded they be printed on each newspaper's front page, or he would cruise around all weekend killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again, until I end up with 12 people over the weekend. The following is the letter deciphered. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and those that I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name, because you will try to slow me down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. The Chronicle published its third of the cryptogram on page 4 of the next day's edition. An article printed alongside the code quoted Vallejo police chief as saying, "We're not satisfied that the letter was written by the murderer," and requested the writer send a second letter with more facts to prove his identity. The threatened murders did not happen, and all 3 parts of the letter were eventually published. On August 7, 1969, another letter was received at the San Francisco Examiner with the salutation, "Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking." This was the first time the killer had used his name for identification. The letter was a response to Chief Stiltz's request for more details that would prove he had killed Faraday, Jensen, and Farron. In it, the Zodiac included details about the murders which had not yet been released to the public, as well as a message to the police that when they cracked his code, they will have me. On August 8, 1969, Donald and Betty Hardin of Salinas, California, cracked the 408-symbol cryptogram. It contained a misspelled message in which the killer said he was collecting slaves for the afterlife. No name appears in the decoded text, and the killer said that he would not give away his identity because it would slow him down. On September 27, 1969, Pacific Union College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were picnicking at Lake Berryessa. A man approached them wearing a black executioner's-type hood with clip-on sunglasses over the eye holes and a bib-like device on his chest. It had a white 3x3 cross-circle symbol on it. He approached them with a gun, which Hartnell believed to be a .45. The hooded man claimed to be an escaped convict from Deer Lodge, Montana, where he had killed a guard and stolen a car, explaining that he needed their car and money to go to Mexico. He had brought pre-cut lengths of plastic clothesline and told Shepard to tie up Hartnell before he tied her up. The killer checked and tightened Hartnell's bonds after discovering Shepard had bound Hartnell's hands loosely. Hartnell initially believed it to be a weird robbery, but the man drew a knife and stabbed them both repeatedly. The killer then hiked 500 yards back up to Knoxville Road, drew the cross-circle symbol on Hartnell's car door with a black felt-tip pen, and wrote beneath it the dates of each murders. At 7:40 p.m., the killer called the Napa County Sheriff's Office from a payphone to report his latest crime. The phone was found, still off the hook, minutes later at the Napa Car Wash on Main Street in Napa, by radio reporter Pat Stanley, only a few blocks from the sheriff's office, yet 27 miles from the crime scene. Detectives were able to lift a still wet palm print from the telephone, but were never able to find a match. After hearing their screams for help, a man and his son, who were fishing in a nearby cove, discovered the victims and summoned help by contacting park rangers. Napa County Sheriff Deputies Dave Collins and Ray Land were the first law enforcement officers to arrive at the crime scene. Cecilia Shepard was conscious when Collins arrived, providing him with a detailed description of the attacker. Hartnell and Shepard were taken to Queen of Valley Hospital in Napa by ambulance. Shepard lapsed into a coma during the transport and never regained consciousness. She died 2 days later, but Hartnell survived to recount his tale to the press. Napa County Sheriff Detective Ken Narlow, who was assigned to the case from the outset, worked on solving the crime until his retirement from the department in 1987. October 11, 1969. A passenger entered the cab driven by Paul Stein, 1 block west from Union Square in San Francisco, requesting to be taken to Presidio Heights. For reasons unknown, Stein drove 1 block past the requested destination. The passenger then shot Stein once in the head with a 9mm, took Stein's wallet and car keys, and tore away a section of Stein's blood-stained shirt tail. The passenger was observed by 3 teenagers across the street at 9:55 p.m. They called the police while the crime was in progress. They observed a man wiping the cab down before walking away towards Presidio, 1 block to the north. 2 blocks from the crime scene, Officer Don Falk, responding to the call, observed a white man walking along the sidewalk and stepping onto a stairway leading up to the front yard of one of the homes on the north side of the street. The encounter lasted only 5 to 10 seconds. The radio dispatcher had alerted to be on the lookout for a black suspect, so they drove past him without stopping. The mix-up in descriptions remains unexplained to this day. A search ensued, but no possible suspects were found. The 3 teen witnesses worked with a police artist to prepare a composite sketch of Stein's killer. Over the years, the San Francisco Police Department investigated an estimated 2,500 suspects. On October 14, 1969, the Chronicle received another letter from the Zodiac, this time containing a swatch of Paul Stein's shirt tail as proof he was the killer. It also included a threat about killing school children on a school bus. To do this, Zodiac wrote, "Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." At 2 p.m. on October 20th, 1969, someone claiming to be the Zodiac called Oakland PD demanding that one of the 2 prominent lawyers, F. Lee Bailey or Melvin Belly, appear on the local television show AM San Francisco, hosted by Jim Dunbar. Bailey was not available, but Belly did appear on the show. Dunbar appealed to the viewers to keep the lines open, and eventually, someone claiming to be the Zodiac called several times and said his name was Sam. Belly agreed to meet with him in Daly City, but the suspect never showed. On November 8, 1969, the Zodiac mailed a card with another cryptogram consisting of 340 characters. Only recently has this cryptogram been deciphered by thezodiackiller.com. On November 9, 1969, the Zodiac mailed a 7-page letter stating that 2 policemen stopped and actually spoke with him 3 minutes after he shot Stein. On December 20th, 1969, exactly 1 year after the murders of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, the Zodiac mailed a letter to Belly that included another swatch of Stein's shirt. The Zodiac said he wanted Belly to help him. On the night of March 22, 1970, Kathleen Johns was driving from San Bernardino to Petaluma to visit her mother. She was 7 months pregnant and had her 10-month-old daughter beside her. While heading west on Highway 132 near Modesto, a car behind her began honking its horn and flashing its headlights. She pulled off the road and stopped. The man in the car behind parked and approached her, stating that he observed that her right rear wheel was wobbling and offered to tighten the lug nuts. After finishing his work, the man drove off. Yet when Johns pulled forward to re-enter the highway, the wheel almost immediately came off the car. The man returned, offering to drive her to the nearest gas station for help. She and her daughter climbed into his car. During the ride, the car passed several service stations, but the man did not stop. For about 90 minutes, he drove back and forth around the back roads. When Johns asked why he was not stopping, he would change the subject. When the driver finally stopped at an intersection, Johns jumped out with her daughter and hid in a field. The driver searched for her using his flashlight, telling her that he would not hurt her, before eventually giving up. Unable to find her, he got back into a car and drove off. Johns hitched a ride to the police station in Patterson. When Johns gave her statement to the sergeant on duty, she noticed the police composite sketch of Paul Stein's killer and recognized him as the driver. Fearing he might come back and kill them all, the sergeant had Johns wait in the dark at the nearby Mills restaurant. When her car was found, it had been gutted and torched. The Zodiac continued to communicate with authorities for the remainder of 1970 via letters and greeting cards to the press. In a letter postmarked April 20th, 1970, the Zodiac wrote, "My name is," followed by a 13-character cipher. The Zodiac went on to state that he was not responsible for the recent bombing of a police station in San Francisco, but added, "There is more glory to killing a cop, because a cop can shoot back." The letter included a diagram of a bomb that the Zodiac claimed he would use to blow up a school bus, and at the bottom of the diagram he wrote, "Zodiac Killer 10, SFPD 0. The Zodiac sent a greeting card postmarked April 28, 1970 to the Chronicle. Written on the card was, "I hope you enjoy yourselves when I have my blast," followed by the Zodiac's cross-circle signature. On the back of the card, the Zodiac threatened to use the bus bomb soon unless the newspaper published the full details he wrote. He also wanted to start seeing people wearing some nice Zodiac buttons. In a letter postmarked June 26, 1970, the Zodiac stated he was upset that he did not see people wearing Zodiac buttons. He wrote, "I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a .38, possibly referring to the murder of Sergeant Richard Reditic a week earlier. On June 19th at 5:25 a.m., Reditic was writing a parking ticket in his squad car when an assailant shot him in the head with a .38. Reditic died 15 hours later. SFPD denies the Zodiac was involved in his murder. However, it remains unsolved. Included in the same letter was a Phillips 66 road map of the San Francisco Bay Area. On the image of Mount Diablo, the Zodiac had drawn a cross circle similar to the ones he had included in previous correspondence. At the top of the cross circle, he placed a 0, 3, 6, and 9. The accompanying instructions stated that the 0 was to be set to Mag N. The letter also included a 32-letter cipher that the killer claimed would, in conjunction with the code, lead to the location of a bomb he had buried and set to go off in the fall. The cipher was never decoded, and the alleged bomb was never located. The killer signed the note with Zodiac Killer 12, SFPD 0. In a letter to the Chronicle postmarked July 24, 1970, the Zodiac took credit for Kathleen John's abduction 4 months after the incident. In a July 26th letter, the Zodiac paraphrased a song from the Mikado, adding his own lyrics about making a little list of the ways he planned to torture his slaves in paradise. The letter was signed with a large and exaggerated cross-circle symbol with a new score, Zodiac Killer 13, SFPD 0. A final note at the bottom of the letter stated, P.S. The Mount Diablo code concerns radians and inches along the radians. In 1981, a close examination of the radian hint by Zodiac researcher Gareth Penn led to the discovery that a radian angle, when placed over the map per Zodiac's instructions, pointed to 2 of the locations of the Zodiac attacks. On October 7, 1970, the Chronicle received a 3x5-inch card signed by the Zodiac, with the Zodiac Killer symbol and a small cross reportedly drawn in blood. The card's message was formed by pasting words and letters from an edition from the Chronicle. 13 holes were punched across the card, and inspectors agreed it was highly probable the card came from the Zodiac. On October 27, 1970, Chronicle reporter Paul Avery, who had been covering the Zodiac case, received a Halloween card signed with the letter Z and the Zodiac's cross circle symbol. Handwritten on the card was the note, "Peekaboo, you are doomed." The threat was taken seriously and received a front-page story on the Chronicle. Soon after receiving this letter, Avery received an anonymous letter alerting him to the similarities between the Zodiac's activities and the unsolved murder of Cherry Joe Bates, which had occurred 4 years earlier at the City College in Riverside, more than 400 miles south of San Francisco. He reported his findings in the Chronicle on November 16, 1970. On March 13, 1971, 5 months after Avery's article linking the Zodiac to the Riverside murder, the Zodiac mailed a letter to the Los Angeles Times. In the letter, he credited the police instead of Avery for discovering his Riverside activity. But they were only finding the easy ones. There are a hell of a lot more down there. The connection between Cherry Joe Bates, Riverside, and the Zodiac remains uncertain. On March 22, 1971, a postcard to the Chronicle addressed to Paul Avery, and believed to be from the Zodiac, appeared to claim responsibility for the disappearance of Donna Lass on September 6, 1970. Made from a collage of advertisements and magazine lettering, it featured a scene from an advertisement for Forest Pines condominiums and the text, "Sierra Club. Sought victim 12. Peek through the pines. Pass Lake Tahoe areas and around in the snow." After the Pines card, the Zodiac remained silent for nearly 3 years. The Chronicle then received a letter from the Zodiac, postmarked January 29, 1974, praising The Exorcist as the best satirical comedy that I have ever seen. The letter included a snippet of verse from the Mikado, an unusual symbol at the bottom that has remained unexplained by researchers. The Zodiac concluded the letter with a new score, me 37, SFPD 0. Further letters postmarked February 4, 1974, May 8, 1974, and July 8, 1974, supposedly sent by the Zodiac, have all been deemed unauthentic. A letter dated April 24, 1978, was initially deemed authentic, but was declared a hoax less than 3 months later by 3 experts. An SFPD homicide detective, Tashi, who had worked the case since the Stein murder, was thought to have forged the letter himself, because the author, Armistead Maupin, believed the letter to be similar to fan mail he received in 1976, which he believed was authored by Tashi. While he admitted to writing the fan mail, he denied forging the Zodiac letter and was eventually cleared of any charges. On March 3, 2007, an American Greeting Christmas card sent to the Chronicle, postmarked 1990 in Eureka, had recently been discovered in their photo files by editorial assistant Daniel King. Inside the envelope, with the card, was a photocopy of 2 U.S. postal keys on a magnetic keychain. The handwriting on the envelope resembled Zodiac's print, but was declared inauthentic by forensic document examiner Lloyd Cunningham. However, not all Zodiac experts agree with Cunningham's analysis. There's no return address on the envelope, nor is there a cross-circle signature to be found. The card itself is unmarked. The Chronicle turned over all the material to the Vallejo Police Department for further analysis. Over the years, the following people have been accused of being the Zodiac Killer, but never confirmed or charged with the crimes. Arthur Lee Allen, Jack Terrence, an unidentified fisherman, Richard Gaikowski, George Hill Hodel Jr., George Russell Tucker, Louis Joseph Myers, Earl Van Best Jr. We may never know the true identity of the Zodiac Killer. However, with advanced technologies and the sheer desire of knowledge, I would wager that someday we will. If you have a serial killer you would like to see featured here, please contact me through any of my social media links or email me at DuchessDark676@gmail.com. See you next time.